Here's a question for you. How confident are you in your identity? How sure are you in what you do and in who you are? I'll be honest, even typing out that question got me a little existential, because it's such a bizarre question with probably not a great answer. Because even if you love what you do and who you are, maybe there's a better path out there. Maybe the path you're on could end poorly. As you can tell, being a YouTuber is a scary thing. But I've been thinking about the concept of identity because of two Webtoon series. Two very different Webtoon series. These series being The Boxer and the Remarried Empress. One is a high-octane sports series that's dedicated to showing the nuance and mastery of the craft, and the other is a romantic tale set during the reign of emperors and kingdoms, with our main character being divorced by her sucky and insensitive husband, who chooses his lineage over common sense. I have a lot of opinions on these series, as I've talked about The Boxer multiple times before, and while I haven't made a video on the Remarried Empress, I did make a video on both the Remarried Empress and the Men of the Harem not too long ago. You can check it out there in the iCard. Anyways, while reading both of these series, a question similar to the one I presented at the beginning arose. That question being, who are we to society, and who are we to ourselves? Now, while I read both of these series, I don't really expect you to. It's kind of like asking someone who's really into Rocky to watch The Crown. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't watched either of them. So let me quickly explain each series. Unsurprisingly, The Boxer is a simple plot. It's about a rising boxing star, Yu, as he tears through each competition with little to no effort. While that sounds kind of boring, where The Boxer really shines is its character development. Every single side character gets so much development. So much so that when they're finally in the ring, you low-key root for them. You want them to win over our main character, even if you know they won't. Meanwhile, the Remarried Empress follows Empress Navier. As the name of the series would suggest, she doesn't stay married to her childhood friend, Empress Ovieshu. While it was a marriage of convenience, they were still on relatively good terms. However, everything changed with this lady, Lady Rashta. In all honesty, Rashta deserves her own video. She's an incredibly complex and layered character, but all that complexity doesn't help the fact that she sucks! Lady Rashta is the one who makes the series called the Remarried Empress instead of the Married Empress. As due to love, a child, a fool, a really dumb plan, Empress Ovieshu divorces Empress Navier. But to stick it to her ex, to Rashta, to the country, to the kingdom, to basically everyone, she requests a remarriage right after her divorce, gaining the power she just lost in a different nation. Both of these series are quite different. Their plots, their characters, their worlds are so different. However, one thing they do have in common is the question of identity. Let me explain. The Boxer takes pride in its side characters, or at least it should, as The Boxer has some of the best written, most interesting and well-developed side characters I've ever read. Most characters have heart-wrenching stories, backstories that make you connect with them more than our main character, Yu. Mainly. Our most recent Boxer kind of subverts that expectation. Russian slugger Viktor Grigovich. Okay. Viktor is a breath of fresh air in the world of The Boxer. Before Viktor, we had the Santorino brothers. Characters with probably the saddest and most heartbreaking backstory and in-the-ring fights. Meanwhile, Viktor doesn't. He barely has a backstory, as even when it's shown, the author makes a note that it doesn't really mean anything. Viktor is just a strong guy who likes fighting and punching. He just wants to be the strongest in the world, so we spend most of the time watching him just punch animals and the elements? Anyways, the fight between them ends rather predictably. Yu wins. However, Viktor doesn't break his smile. Even with a 1.1 second bout, one of the shortest bouts in history, Viktor still has a big goofy smile on him. even saying that he had fun. However, when he goes to congratulate you, he notices his small build, his tired and uninteresting words and eyes, not the demeanor of a champion or even someone who's having fun. To which Victor comments, "You don't have to box if you don't want to." It's a weird moment. While Yu is our main character, Yu is never in the spotlight. He's almost never given an arc, a chance to develop, a backstory, barely any of his own thoughts, opinions, dreams, anything. All we know about Yu is that he's an insane boxer. So much so that people consider him a monster. So if you're into boxing in this world, then you're sure to know who Yu is. That's how spectacular he is. So it's weird when Victor asks if he's even into it. Yu doesn't really have his own identity. He lets others, like Coach K, define who he is. He doesn't even know what he's doing. Yu has no identity. So that one time someone else was part of his identity, and that one time the person was taken away, he kind of lost it. The problem arises when your identity is in something that can be easily taken away. When you don't have your own identity, when you're defined by others, then that definition, that identity can change, can worsen, or can disappear altogether. We see this in our other webtoon that I wanted to talk about today, the Remarried Empress. As I've mentioned before, the Remarried Empress follows Empress Navier, a strong and capable leader. Empress Navier has been training her whole life to be a leader, as she's been reading, studying, learning, taking courses and classes, networking? Can you network in medieval times? I'm gonna say yes. Empress Navier has dedicated her whole life to being an empress, and for good reason. She always knew that she was going to be an empress. She knew what her future was. The problem arises with the problem girl, Lady Rashta. Empress Navier had no reason to expect Lady Rashta to become a problem in her future. Not because Empress Ovieshu wouldn't take a mistress. No, that's not really the problem with this. As I explained in this video, no, the problem arises when Lady Rashta seemingly becomes more than just a mistress. Empress Ovieshu starts to compare the two, when he clearly cares for one over the other. When he has a child with Lady Rashta and forces Empress Navier to throw a party and expect her to love it? Of course the Empress gets agitated by Lady Rashta's attempts to establish a friendship between the two. And Empress Ovieshu is just an idiot who just does like the stupidest stuff possible. But, as she puts it,
however, I am an empress. I've lived my entire life preparing for this role. This life is the only life I've ever dreamt of, and now it is my reality. I do not want to throw my life away simply because my husband is making it difficult.
She knows who she is, but that's also part of the problem. As Grand Duke Kaufman put it, that is impressive, but it's also a risky way of thinking. What would you do if your husband asks you for a divorce first? Your identity is too tied up in your role as an empress. But if you and His Majesty were to be divorced, you would no longer be an empress. I fear you may break down if that happens. And our Grand Duke isn't wrong, as we see His Majesty does decide to get a divorce. For a super dumb reason that I won't get into now because it's basically unimportant, but when she hears that he wants to, she spirals. She does indeed break down. As Empress Navier dedicated her whole life to becoming an empress, and now that position is practically being ripped from her. Empress Navier knows nothing but being an empress, which is why she jumps ship and marries King Henry. And while she considers him a friend, I don't really think she married him out of love. She married him because she really didn't know what else to do. She dedicated her whole life to one path, so she's planning on sticking with it. This whole video was on identity, the concept of being aware of who you are. These two characters are both great talking points on identity, mainly because they're opposites. Yu has no identity of his own. He has no path, only really living life when others choose it for him. He doesn't care what his path is or if it changes. If Koke wants him to get into esports or start playing table hockey, he doesn't care. Meanwhile, Empress Navier has too much at stake in who she is. She's too tied up in one role. She's put all of her eggs in one basket, and when that basket was about to fall apart, she kind of breaks down. I'm not really sure what the lesson here is. You should be aware of who you are, of what you want in life. You should have dreams, have aspirations, and try your hardest to follow those dreams. But you should always be ready to change, as change is the one constant in life. You should always be prepared, because sometimes your identity will be taken from you. And then what will you do? Will you spiral and break down? Or will you adapt, overcome, and change with the times? As a YouTuber, it can be scary. I don't know where this path is leading, and who knows how long I could even keep doing this. It's barely a job, as it doesn't pay enough for me to be independent. But it doesn't mean I should stop because it's risky. But I also know it doesn't mean that I should put my entire identity into this channel. Because who knows what the future can hold? Who knows if I'll become popular enough to keep on doing this full time? Who knows if it's gonna crash and burn in a month? I guess all you can really hope for is that your identity stays secure. And when it doesn't, I guess I don't really know. But, like always, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next week. Take care.